Welcome to our first Women's Wednesday session, not just for women anymore. We are really excited to be launching this series through the Women's Business Center. I'm Brandy Stitt, the Program Director for the Women's Business Center, and we will be hosting new sessions every Wednesday at 10 o'clock on a variety of topics that are designed to help businesses that are impacted through this current pandemic. Please know that we will be adding you to our e-newsletter, which is how we will be communicating directly with you upcoming sessions. So be sure to stay tuned and look for those. I do want to also note that we are going to be recording this session. And so just keep that in mind. And at this time, I would like to go ahead and introduce our speaker, Rebecca Garcia-Cook. Rebecca is an epidemiologist and health educator with 18 years of applied health, public health experience and consultation. In addition, she's a certified business and leadership coach through her firm, Greenboat Executive Coaching and Consulting. And at this time, I am going to go ahead and make Rebecca our host and invite her to join us. Thanks.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Brandy. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here with you. Okay, so our conversation today is about reopening Kansas City and helping you as business owners create new norms in this, our COVID-19 reality. So the situation is constantly changing. And so the data that's in here was current as of May 24th, which was Sunday. But I have links so you can follow everything as we go on. I want to thank the Women's Center as well for hosting me for this presentation. I'm here to help you reopen safely. But also as a leader, I want you to have confidence and clarity as you're making the decisions you need to make to reopen your business. In all of that, you also have to be tremendously agile and flexible and adaptable as you have been the last 12 weeks, because as you know and I know, this situation just keeps changing. So there's the what you do and then there's the how you do it. This is interactive. We have a chat box. Our chat box is manned. I want you to go ahead and post comments so we can see what you're thinking, and I want you to participate as we go forward. If you have questions, go ahead and put them also in the chat box, and we'll have time for question and answers as we move forward. We're in a pandemic, y'all. It is a global pandemic. It was announced by the World Health Organization in mid-March that this was something that was far beyond just a global concern. This was definitely a pandemic. It has impacted over 200 countries, and we're in it, and we're gonna be in it for a while. And that's why we're hosting this today, is to help you figure out how to move through it. Currently, we are in a state of emergency in Missouri. That's gonna happen until June 15th. And yesterday, Governor Kelly announced Kansas will remain in a state of disaster until June 10th. Now, this has been going on. We all started our lockdown in mid-March, about 10 weeks ago. You made it, guys. You helped flatten the curve. We did not overrun our healthcare system, but this is an ongoing situation. This is currently happening. And when you look outside on this really beautiful day and you see sunshine and you see flowers and you see birds, there's also this sense of dissonance of, is this really happening? Yes, you are currently in an emergency situation. There have been over 100,000 deaths in the United States. This is ongoing, it will go on, and you'll be making some changes. We're going to talk about safety, but when I talk to you about safety, I really want you to understand that safety is just a freedom from unacceptable risk. We're going to be talking about what are risk factors for COVID-19 and how you can mitigate them. But ladies, there is absolutely no such thing as zero risk. Zero risk is not possible. The risk factor for COVID-19 is breathing. So any person who breathes can get COVID-19. So there is no chance that we can have a zero risk factor in this situation, but we are going to work to mitigate risk and to reduce your risk. As you make changes in your workplace, there's going to be the what you do, and there's also going to be the how you do it, because you are going to be leading and making changes that are going to impact entire systems and people's lives. And how you do that is really going to impact your business. So I'll be talking to you about how you do the what you do in this as well. That's part of the coaching part. My name is Rebecca Garcia Cook. Like Brandy said, I've worked in the field of public health for almost 20 years. I'm an epidemiologist and a behavioral scientist. I've had my own consulting business for about 20 years, really focusing in on employee wellness and making sure employees are holistically well. From that, I moved into executive coaching because I realized a lot of times people knew what to do, but they always didn't know how to do it in a way that worked with the systems they were around. So I moved into executive coaching. I also have a background in biology, so I'm here for you. My education is here to serve you. My purpose is to help systems have better outcomes. So I want your systems, your family, your business, your leadership, your community to have better outcomes. And that's what I do as a coach and as a consultant. On the chat board today, you already met Brandy. Brandy is with the Women's Business Center. She's handling any kind of logistical questions you might have, any problems you might have with Zoom. Go ahead and direct them to Brandy. Also on the chat board today is a longtime colleague of mine, Dr. Christina Brunt. I believe she's listed as a host. She's here to man any questions that you have. If you notice there's a link you need and you're not sure where to get it, all of this will be both recorded and it's also going to be posted. You'll have the entire PowerPoint available to you. But Dr. Brunt is available for you. Dr. Brunt is available for you. If you guys would all just say hi in the chat box, that would be a good way to connect. Okay, there's a lot of have-tos in this situation. There's a lot of legal directives that are going to come down, and the ordering that you need to follow when you listen is first anything from the White House. Anything that the president says is going to be first and foremost what we do. And he put us into a state of emergency when we had our initial lockdown. And then underneath him, each state has the ability to put in even tighter restrictions. Every county can make even tighter restrictions. Every city can make them even tighter. If you are part of an industry, they're going to have very specific guidelines for your industry. And if you've chosen to be a part of a professional organization, those are also guidance that you will be following. So there's a series that you'll be following. Kind of a simple way to remember it is the highest up is typically the very least restrictive, but in your case, you have to follow the most restrictive guidelines and always follow your local laws. And that's going to vary by the city and the county that you are living in. Statewide plans are available. Missouri has theirs, Show Me Strong plan, and Kansas has the Ad Strata. Both of them have a phased reopening, and you'll need to follow whatever phase we're in. And these are going to be changing as we move forward. These will be changing as we move forward. Yesterday, Governor Kelly, May 26th, Governor Kelly announced that that opening is no longer going to be state mandated. It's going to be mandated at the county level, even though she will still be giving recommendations to the county. So really recognizing who you need to be listening to and follow is going to be a key part. If right now in the chat box, you would write what county you are in. So in my case, I'm in Johnson County. Just go ahead and type Johnson County or Jackson County or Clay County. Go ahead and place what Wyandotte County, name the county that you're in right now. And that's going to help you as you think about where you need to go for your information. So there's a lot of have-tos. There's also get-tos. You started a business. You have a business because you have a passion in your heart, because there is something you do that you contribute to the world that nobody else can. And so you get to continue to live into that in this really crazy disruptive time. What you do, what you've created is tremendously important, and the world needs it. The world needs you and your business. And so you get to keep doing that in a different way, but you get to do it still. It's also a time to really value the people who are a part of your organization, be it your employees, your suppliers, your clients, and everybody connected to them. I like systems, but everyone connected to them. This is the time to really say, this is what's important. And in this too, you get to be creative, and you also get to see opportunities. Feels like you have to, but you also get to. When else have you had so much change happen and people expect it to happen? That's kind of a unique place to be. If you get overwhelmed in this whole presentation, which I'm sure you will, because there's going to be a lot of information, and you say, oh, what do I do? Safe Return KC is the emergency response team for this entire region. They've put together some really good resources. So if you leave all of this and you just say, oh my goodness, I can't follow any of that, go here. It's a good start. It doesn't have nearly the depth, but it's a really good place to start. It has summary material and it has good links. So if I give you one thing to look at, that's going to be it. Our presentation outline is going to be the situation overview, which we just finished. We're going to talk through the epidemiology of COVID-19 because I'm sure you have received so much information. I want you to make sure it's all good information. We'll talk quickly about breaking the chain of infection, key for you in your situation. And then we're going to walk through the CDC's guide on Ready to Open. It's a process guide. And I know you guys all know processes because you have businesses. And this is going to be the process you go through to go ahead and make sure your business is safe, that you have mitigated the risks in your situation in order to help you open. Okay, COVID-19. We are all now armchair epidemiologists. When an epidemiologist is going to be talking about any kind of disease, we start out with the agent, the host, and then the environment that it is in. In this case, the agent is COVID-19. We're the hosts, and the environment is any place it is able to live. So all of our surfaces around us. COVID-19 is a respiratory illness, which means it works with our lungs. It's a novel virus. It emerged in China at the end of November, beginning of December in 2019. If it was a business, we would say it pivoted. It pivoted from bats into people. And man, again, if it was a business, we would say it had a phenomenal market takeoff. It has covered the world in just a few months. It has a very long official name, but it can easily be called just COVID-19 virus, both the disease and the virus being referred to by the same thing. When epidemiologists talk about infectious agents, there are 6 characteristics we talk about. This is my official epidemiology voice. The names are very, very serious names. However, they really just mean, can I get it? Does it make me sick? How sick do I get? Am I gonna die? Does it make poison? Can I kill it? And can I fight it better next time? So we're gonna go through each of these for you and for your business so you can say, okay, now I have all of these pieces clear. As I put in different kind of infection control strategies, I know I've got really solid information. If you can see the screen, you'll see a really quick color coordinated chart on all of these going through, can I get it? Which really means, can I get it? Can my employees get it? Can my associates get it? Can my clients get it? And we're going to go through each of those. All of these pertain not just to you as an individual, but to people as infectious hosts in this. So the first one is infectivity. Can I get it? Can my employees get it? Can my family get it? Can my clients get it? Can people get COVID-19? Yes. So COVID-19 is a respiratory disease. It is passed primarily through airborne droplets. That means droplets and spray come out of our mouth and other people take them in. Secondary, it comes through fomites. Can you all say fomites with me? I really like that word, fomites, fomites. So we all, because we all talk and breathe, secrete respiratory droplets, and we do it through coughing or sneezing or yelling, anything that occurs with our mouth and our respiratory system. It also happens through talking. Now, our droplets go about 6 feet if we're coughing, sneezing, yelling, or singing. You guys all know this. Actually, if you think back to middle school, I'm sure you remember a teacher. Yeah, the teacher with the splash zone. the teacher where nobody would sit in the first 1 or 2 rows because as they talked, there was this stream that went out from them. Yep, you remember that. So do I. We all do that. We all are projecting as we speak, as we sneeze, as we yell, anytime we do it. We are projecting that, and even as we talk. And not only that, other people are taking that in. That's kind of gross. Yeah, but that is how COVID-19 gets passed from person to person. We talk, we yell, we sing, we shout, we sneeze, and other people breathe it in, and then it gets down into their lungs. So that is the primary way that it's passed, is person to person. Really good news. Droplets obey gravity. So when they come out of our mouths, they fall down. You don't have to worry about walking into this like cloud of smoke, COVID. No, as it comes out of people's mouths, it falls to the ground, which is really fantastic. Okay, so you can also get it from inanimate objects that become contaminated. So if, let's say, I'm talking and I sneeze, then my hands are now contaminated, and anything I touch, like, hey, can I borrow your pen? I need to sign something. This is now a fomite. Say fomite. Yeah, fomite. Okay, so this is now contaminated, and anybody who touches this is not only going to be picking up my pen, but is also going to be picking up the virus, which is now on the pen because I sneezed on my hand and touched the pen. Now, anything that gets touched after someone has contaminated hands can become a possible fomite. That could be a computer mouse. It could be a telephone. It could be a touch screen computer, pencils, pens, anything that people touch. And really it's this. It's frequently touched items because you have a greater chance that somebody with the virus touched it and are infrequently cleaned. And so it gets on the hands, and then what happens is people touch their face. They rub their eyes, or they rub their nose, or rub their mouth. Any of those ways, move it from the hands into the face. Epidemiologists also have another word called the R naught. The R naught just talks about how many people does one person pass it to. Now it starts out with a single person, and it typically gets passed to about 2.5 people. Now, I've never yet met a half person, but COVID-19 has, and it passes to about 2.5 people. And prolonged contact really increases the risk. So anytime people are together for a long time, like families or coworkers or people who attend a party together, they're all talking together for a long time, much, much, much greater risk that people are going to be getting the virus from someone who has it because they've had a whole lot of contact together. And so that leads to what we call super spreader events. You guys might have heard about the choir in Washington. They had about 60 people who got together to sing for 2.5 hours. And out of 60 people that got together, one person came in with very mild symptoms, and it passed to over 40 people. One person to 40. There was also a restaurant in China. One person came in with with no symptoms, and they passed it to almost 10 people in their family just from that restaurant setting. A whole lot of details with that. It's not just eating out, but you can have a super spreader event where one person passes to multiple people, but typically it stays with a kind of smaller number. So when is COVID-19 most infectious? Well, the bad news is when people are asymptomatic, about 1 to 3 days before the symptoms appear, and then very early on when they're just starting to show symptoms is when people are most infectious. That doesn't seem fair to me, but that's when it's most infectious. It takes about, the symptoms typically last about 2 to 14 days. And at that time, and towards the end of it, it's understood that people are a whole lot less infectious, although that is still uncertain. Scientists are still learning a lot about how the virus works. But the big thing to know is that before people demonstrate any kind of symptoms, they actually tend to be pretty infectious. And even at the very beginning of their disease, they are also infectious. If you're thinking about people returning to work though, good news, after about 14 days from onset of symptoms, people are no longer infectious, so they can come back to the workplace. That's still changing. You can follow links to figure out where I have links posted, and you can follow the most current advice from the CDC on when people can return to work. Okay, still talking about how infectious is it. In Kansas, we had our very first case on March 7th, and on Sunday, we had almost 9,000 cases of COVID-19 in Kansas. Missouri had their first case March 7th, and as of Sunday, they had almost 12,000 cases. The United States had its first case on January 20th, and the United States now has 1.7 million cases. Worldwide, we're at 7.4 million cases, and like we said, that pivot from bats into people happened at the very end of November, early December. So this has spread really, really quickly. So as you think about your business, these are a few things that you're going to want to consider. Again, you're getting this PowerPoint, so you can listen right now, but expect COVID-19 to impact your business. It is here. It is not going to go away. It's not going to go away until we have natural herd immunity. That means 70 to 80% of the population has gotten it, or we get a vaccine, and that's probably at least 18 months away. Prepare for absenteeism in yourself, in your suppliers, in clients, because it is here. Expect to change how you do business, which is why you came today. Really, any kind of in-person interactions are going to be key. Focus on those who have those direct contacts rather than, oh no, I walked past somebody. But the direct contact is really what you want to be looking at. Consider fomite control, and really also talk about your organization culture, about when people are sick, that they need to stay home, because even a little sick still means a lot contagious. And for you, my dear business owner who works so hard and puts in so many hours, you too, when you're sick, you need to stay away from other people. That's going to be hard. I know you work hard, but in order to take care of your business, you also need to stay home. On your R-Not, expect if someone gets infected, other people are going to be getting infected as well. And also expect that at some point in the next 18 months, people in your business are going to need to self-isolate, because even if they are not sick, they are likely going to be contacted about having been in contact with someone who was sick. So you need to think about these things as you think about your business. It's gonna happen. It is going to impact your business. Can I get it? Yes, you can. And so can your employees, and so can your clients, and so can your suppliers, and so can all of their families. Yes, you can get it. So, does it make me sick? The symptoms that the CDC says for COVID-19 are first kind of the coughing, which spreads it really well, shortness of breath and difficulty breathing, fever, but not always present, chills, some muscle pain, a sore throat, and then a new loss of smell or taste. That's kind of a fun one. It's not all the possible symptoms, but this is the really, really simple list that most people present with. Here's a much more complete list. So mild, moderate, at a severe level though, the virus goes into the lungs and people can develop viral pneumonia and have trouble breathing, and then they also have persistent pain in the chest. It impacts the neurological system, and COVID-19 also impacts a person's immune system, and not just in the fighting, but it impacts how the immune system works. So it impacts the respiratory system, the neurological system, and the immune system. And most severe, it can cause death. So stay home if sick. Your colleagues need to stay home if sick. Clients need to stay home if sick. even if just a little bit sick. Yeah, that's hard. First, you would call your doctor, or any of your staff would call a doctor, say, hey, these are some of the symptoms I have. If you're not sure though, CDC has a free self-checker for COVID-19 online. It looks just like this. The link is at the bottom. You'd go to it, you type in your symptoms, and then the CDC would say, hey, these are some of the things you need to do. It is not reported anywhere. It just gives you some guidance if you don't have someone you can go to. In addition, Kansas has an info line, and Missouri also has an info line where you can call, you can talk to medical professionals and talk about what's happening. You can also use these resources in other ways, but people can call and say, hey, these are my symptoms. What do I need to do? First and foremost though, call your own personal physician. Don't go into offices. They don't want to see you, especially if you might have COVID-19, but give them a call. Telemedicine is a really big thing right now. There's also community resources available for you. Every county and city in this area has also set up different hotlines that you can utilize. This is the one for Johnson County. It's staffed by school nurses and it's available for your use. And if you have questions about COVID-19 or about what phase we're in or about anything else, you can call and talk to somebody directly and they can give you some really phenomenal information about what you need. It's like your own private consultant. It's pretty great. So, does it make me sick? Usually it does. Something to really pay attention to with your business is expect there to be a whole lot of uncertainty with your symptoms. COVID-19 can present in a really mild fashion. There is no way to determine whether you have COVID-19 or whether you just have a common cold or whether you have the flu. So as a business, you need to have some sort of policy and plans in case anyone has any kinds of symptoms, including you. I know that's hard. Yeah, you work hard, and I'm sure you typically work even when you're a little bit sick. You can work from home. You don't have to stop. Also expect, though, impacts to mental health. The disease progression for COVID-19 really varies. Sometimes it's very mild and then it gets really bad, and sometimes it just stays really, really mild. But with someone comes down with COVID-19, just the mental stress of knowing that and the fear and anxiety, which I'm sure in the last 10 weeks you've experienced some of, that is tremendously impactful for anyone, for yourself, and then anyone on your team. Expect for your team morale to be impacted if anyone they know gets sick. It also comes with this heightened sense of danger of, oh my goodness, something around me is happening and it might happen to me too. And it's happening to someone I care about. And that really impacts people and their performance. So you being a voice of calm in the middle of it is highly important. Check on your people. Check on all the people that matter to you because this is impacting them. And for you yourself as your business leader, make sure you have people in place who are supporting your own mental health. If you find that you tend to be moody, irritable, angry, short, all of those are signs that you need to have a conversation with an advisor or a friend or a counselor or a coach, someone who can help walk with you during this time period, especially as you're helping other people in this time as well. So you're likely to get it. It's likely to make you sick, but how sick do you think it might make you? Okay, so out of 100 people who get sick with COVID-19, about 80% of them stay in a mild to moderate place. About 14% have severe illnesses, often needing to be hospitalized. About 5% go into a critical state and they might have to be intubated. And right now, the fatality rate for COVID-19 is at about 2.3% of people who get it. So these numbers are changing. We're learning more and more about it, and they vary by region. But about 80% just have mild to moderate symptoms. I'm sure you're saying, okay, well, that's not so bad. There are people who have a higher risk for severe outcomes, not a higher risk for catching COVID-19, but a higher risk for severe outcomes. And those are anyone who is an older adult. 65 is kind of the cutoff zone that they've used, and also severe underlying medical conditions. This is a place where you're going to need to talk to your HR person, because asking about underlying conditions hit ADA guidelines. Here's your link on the bottom for it, to go explore the equal opportunity, the EEOC, and to look at that. But you'll be needing to ask questions on it. Make sure you do it in a way that's appropriate. Make sure you're doing it in a way that's appropriate. Your recovery time, also important as a business owner. Typically, it's 7 to 10 days for mild to moderate cases, and once symptoms abate, people can come back into the workforce. For your severe cases, though, it can last 10 to 12 weeks, and it can just be ongoing with incredible fatigue in some cases. So it's not just the flu. In the United States, we've had almost 100,000 fatalities. That's a whole lot of people. Sometimes people say, yeah, but that's probably not any worse than it was. If you look at this graph right here, on the far right-hand side, what you see are the excess deaths that we've had in the United States because of COVID-19. And that top button, that top X is actually a 30% increase in deaths that week in the United States. So it's not just the flu. If it's hard for you to look at numbers, I want to introduce you to Susan. Susan was a teacher for 55 years. She loved leopard print. Her students spoke super highly of her. She was loyal. She loved Italian food. It's people like Susan who are no longer with us. So this is not just the flu. So how sick does it make me? Could be really mild, and it could be fatal. As a business owner, as you apply this to your own setting, expect COVID-19 to present uniquely. There is no one way that it's going to happen. People might be just fine, and they might have a little bit of a stuffy nose and a sore throat, and they can continue to work from home with no problem whatsoever. Other people are going to be so fatigued that they cannot do anything from home or from the hospital. You need to also pay attention to ADA guidelines for who is more likely to be the severe cases. So your time off for sick leave is really going to vary. We'll talk about policy for your business later. Some people will have some really severe outcomes to this. And even if their disease is not as severe, realize that it can have a long duration, and it can also cause some long-term neurological damage in people who get COVID-19. I have a link in here for CDC return to work guidelines. We also talk about that in multiple places moving forward. Follow the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's guidance on talking to people about risk factors. Talk to your human resource person, and those links are in here as well. Toxicity. Epidemiologists ask about any disease agent. Does it make poison? Nope. Hey, guys, it could be worse. COVID-19 does not make poison, so we can pass that one on. But can I kill it? Yes and no. So going back to our epi triangle, we have our host, our agent, and our environment. We want to kill the host when we want to kill the agent, so it doesn't kill the host. We want to kill the agent, whether it's in the host or in the environment. So in the environment, it's actually pretty easy to kill COVID-19. Soap and water is incredibly effective. There's lots of disinfecting agents that can tear it to pieces. Time will kill COVID-19, and also high temperatures. I love how soap works. Soap is attracted to the fatty membranes on COVID-19. And so when you put soap and water on your hands and you start washing, you are actually tearing apart the virus. And if you have a pretty active imagination, as you're sitting there rubbing, what you're actually doing is creating all these like multiple explosions of the virus. It can't handle it. It just gets pulled to pieces. So wash your hands. Think of Star Wars. Think about mighty battles with soap and water. If you're using your environmental disinfectants, you're going to be using anything off of the list N, which the EPA and the CDC has put together. They also have a process for deciding what to clean and when to clean it. This is very detailed. Sometime you'll need to sit down with it and say, okay, what and how, what and how, what and how. OSHA, once you have people working with chemicals, you need to also pay attention to OSHA if you're a business that has more than 10 employees. So you can absolutely disinfect. It's easy. Simplest thing is something with 60% alcohol, or just a bleach solution, which is 1/4 cup bleach in a gallon of water. All of those are listed on these web pages, and they are also all listed on the CDC website. Time and temperature. So COVID-19 degrades over time, and it's actually pretty short. Within a few days, the virus is no longer present on any kind of surfaces. The RNA continues to be present. So sometimes you've heard people say, well, they can still find it. And it creates a lot of fear. Yeah, the RNA is present, but the infectious virus is no longer present. And so that also varies by surface type and by temperature. So depending on what your situation is, look on the CDC website, and that can give you a lot more specifics. That is there at the bottom. So CDC came out with this very recently. The clarification they want to give is the primary way COVID-19 is passed is person to person. Person to person is that primary infection source. In fact, they took contaminated surfaces from it is passed to it may be possible to get COVID-19 from environmental surfaces. So hear that. Person to person, as you're thinking about how you're going to be reducing risk factors, person to person interactions, first and foremost. And then absolutely, you still have to clean, you're still required to clean, you still need to clean, but that's secondary. Spend your time on person to person interactions. So can I kill it once it's inside of me? Sorry to say that there are no specific medications at present to treat COVID-19. Right now, you just treat the symptoms the way you might treat a cold or a cough. It's your immune system that's going to be fighting COVID-19. So any kind of good health practices are helpful because they boost your immune system. You want to make sure you get good sleep, you're eating really healthy, you're getting your exercise. Those things are all going to give you a stronger body. But aside from that, there's nothing else that can be done. There's not yet a vaccine available to help boost your immune system and help recognize it and fight it better. That will probably take about 18 months at the very soonest to be out. So can I kill it? In the environment, yes, you can. In people, nope, not yet. So your business application on resistance, you are going to need to enhance your cleaning processes. You need to talk about organizational culture for your hygiene behaviors. That's a really fancy way of saying cover your mouth when you sneeze. Preferably not your hand, like a Kleenex, or sneeze into your cough pocket. Personal hygiene around your respiratory system is important. Legally, OSHA has guidelines for employers about the cleaning process and also how your employees are going to safely use chemicals if you're having your employees do it versus like a cleaning company, because then they would be responsible there. There's a link for you. And the biggest thing I want you to take away from this whole area is prevention is key. You just don't want people to get the virus in their body. Just keep people and the virus apart. Okay. So can I fight it better next time? Probably, maybe. We don't know yet. There are a lot of knowns about COVID-19. This just started in December. There are no experts on COVID-19. There are a ton of research studies, but they're all brand new and they're all at the beginning stages and they're all just adding to the information. But there are so many unknowns. What you need to do is to be familiar with quality information sources. The Centers for Disease Control, first and foremost, they're going to be the place you go for information. World Health Organization. Yep, right after CDC, follow anything the World Health Organization says. The Missouri Department of Health and Human Services has a fantastic COVID-19 page, and so does the Kansas Department for Human Services. Those are going to be the places you go for accurate information about COVID-19 for your business. And because there are so many unknowns, give people grace. Give yourself grace. You've never done this before. You've probably never experienced a pandemic at this level. This can be incredibly overwhelming. The situation is constantly changing. Acknowledge that. Simply say, wow, this is hard. And when you acknowledge that this is a hard situation and you're uncertain, that clears up a bunch of the mental clutter, and you're actually going to be able to make the decisions you need to make. It's going to give room for creativity. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, reach out to a friend or an advisor or a colleague or a coach or a counselor. Reach out. You need those relationships. Hold space for big emotions in others. And if you're holding space for big emotions, you need someone to hold space for your big emotions. You absolutely will have them. And then keep going. Hey, you've made it this far, and keep going. So when we talk about infection control, it focuses in on 6 areas: the agent, the host, and the environment, which we've already talked about, and then how it passes between them. So the portals of exit, which is the mouth primarily, and then the mode of transmission, how it gets around, which a lot of times are those droplets and those fomites, and then the portal of entry, which is other people's respiratory system, mouth, nose, eyes, anything connected to the mucous membranes. We're not ingesting it. If you eat it, that's not as big of a deal. It's if you inhale it and get it into your lungs. That's the place. It doesn't go in through your skin, so wearing gloves doesn't keep it out of your skin. Your skin is already phenomenal at keeping it out and keeping other things out. So when we think about what we need to do, it's going to be putting these different things in place. And as you reduce the risk in your very specific situation in your business, you're going to be thinking about, okay, how do I keep it from going out? How do I keep it from coming in? What do I do about fomites? Yeah. So a really easy rule of thumb, the more time you spend and the closer the space you are to anyone who is infected, the higher your risk. Also, interacting with more people raises your risk, and inside is riskier than outside. Time, space, people, place. Those things are going to impact your risk. And so I want you to take a second and I want you to think about, what is your risk tolerance level? Remember, we started out saying there is no such thing as no risk. No such thing as no risk. We have an infectious agent. We are in a pandemic. It makes people sick. What's your risk tolerance level? If you are risk intolerant, you want to go back into lockdown mode. Being that you're here today, I think you probably have some risk tolerance because you're listening and you're saying, okay, how can I do this? How can I do this safely? So if you would put that in the chat box right now and just take a second and write down what you think your risk tolerance level would be around COVID-19. Okay, and so now also, let's go ahead and take any questions on this section. Christina has been bringing those questions together for me. Okay. Are there any questions so far? I'm spending time right now looking at the chat bar, if you've put anything in there. See a lot of Johnson County, business in Johnson and Jackson. What questions do you have on the information we've shared so far? What is your risk tolerance level? Okay, still working remotely, not really going out. Working remotely is a really effective way of social distancing. For myself, with my consulting, I've moved all my businesses, all my clients online, which I do consult internationally. So I've already been working with an online platform. So that worked pretty well. Okay, any other thoughts as we wrap up this first portion? I'm not seeing any comments. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and switch into section 2 of our presentation. Give me 1 second. Let me share my screen again. We will start on part 2. Okay. Getting a question from Dr. Brunt. I'm going to check that real quick. Okay. All right. So our second part is really going to be about applying what you've just learned. Again, I want you to be able to reopen safely and to have confidence and clarity. I'm sure many of you have already spent a lot of time trying to figure out what to do. So I hope as you go through this, you are validated in the steps you've already taken. I'm also giving you a process that you can work through. So if you're missing anything, you've got it. There's probably some new information as well. And again, this is to help you be agile, flexible, and adaptable so you and your precious, amazing, fantastic business can do its best in this really confusing time. We're talking about mitigating risk, which means reducing the risk. Zero risk is absolutely not possible. You're in a pandemic. It's going to impact you. It is not contained, and there's a high likelihood we will have future waves of this. The good news is you have already experienced lockdown. You already know what it's like. You have already come this far. You know how to get through it because you've done it before. You are more resilient than you think you are, and you have the capacity and the ability to do this hard thing. So we are likely in what would be called wave 1. We've gone through our epi curve. I'm sure you've seen lots of those and the whole talk of flattening the curve. We are about where the blue arrow is. We've come down, we are de-escalating, and hopefully that continues to go down and COVID-19 goes away. That's kind of wishful thinking. It's not going away because it's so infectious and it's all over the world. It is not contained except in a few isolated countries. It is all over the world, so it will continue to impact us moving forward. We are going to go through the CDC decision tree guide, and this is just a simple process to say, can I reopen? Have I done all of the steps? Here's a link, And this is a process you can use in your own business, validating the work you have already done, making sure if you're missing information, you're going to be catching it right here and right now. Again, legally, follow all the directives from all the people who are giving you information. Thankfully, they all align. That's really helpful. And they kind of boil down to stay away from people as much as possible. That's kind of your guidance. Legally, a lot of people are not giving a strong legal ramifications yet. It's more the natural consequences of getting sick. That's what's been happening at present. Not to say that that won't change, but follow the legal directives from all of the people who are speaking in. I also want to affirm that this is a really hard situation. You are also not alone in this. I've given you lots of resources that can help you, that are a phone call away, that are a chat board away, of resources where you can call immediately and say, hey, I'm confused, I need help, I need to reach out. You can do hard things. You've already made it through 12 weeks of pandemic. You can make good choices in regards to your business. You can look at all of this information and you can make good choices to protect yourself, your workers, your business, your clients, and all of their families and your community. You can make good choices. And I also want to promise you that this will end. The COVID-19 epidemic will not last forever. It will end. It'll take a while, but you can do it, and so can your business. So moving through the different gating criteria, the gating criteria actually came from the White House, and so every state has created their own gating criteria to move from one phase to another. Simply that means the number of restrictions that are in place change, and they change over time, and they change by very known metrics. So for Kansas, in order to move into a new phase, they want to see stable or declining rates. So when you think about that epi curve that goes straight up and down, they want it to either be going down or to go ahead and be level. If they start to see an upswing, that's when that's when Kansas, Missouri, any state is going to start to impose stronger lockdown measures that might impact your business. Like what we saw in no in-person commerce, a complete lockdown, only telework. They're also looking at hospitalization rates over a 14-day period and number of deaths. And this is consistent in both Kansas and Missouri. All of this is available publicly. Like, you can go and look at it on the health department's website, and you can actually prepare for what's going to happen in the next 14 days. So for example, we just had Memorial Day weekend. And so there's a possibility that because of everything that happened, especially in the Lake of the Ozarks, there will be an uptick in cases. And you can go to the dashboard data on the Kansas website, most of your counties have it, or on the Missouri website, and see what's happening and go, oh yeah, these are going up. We're probably going to stay where we're at or take a step back if it's really intense. And you can have an idea of what's happening. So that can really, really help you prepare. But even going into the fall, knowing that there is going to be movement between these phases is going to be helpful for you. It's not just going to open and go away. There will be changes, but they're changes that you can prepare for. So this is the CDC document on reopening and what you need to do in order to reopen. Now, there's lots of information like this. This is the one I'm choosing to use because I think it's very straightforward. There's a link on the side. There'll also be a link in the chat board. And this kind of says, yes, no, have I done it? Have I not done it? All right, how am I mitigating risk? That's what we're looking for to do. First and foremost, is it legal to reopen your business? If you're in Missouri, go to the Show Me Strong plan and see if you're a business that can open. If you're in Kansas, go to the Add a Strata plan and see if you can reopen. To know for Kansas, Kansas has now as a state given that to the county level, and it's now the counties that are choosing whether to follow the Kansas plan or not. But again, you remember, White House, state, county, city. You need to follow all of those that you're under. But the place you'll usually go is to the Kansas plan and say, is my business legal to reopen right now? And the question they ask, are you ready to protect your employees who are at a higher risk for severe illness? Now, we talked about some of the personal factors about increased risk. That's under the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Direct resources about what you can ask and what you can't ask. They have a guide, they have common questions. And a lot of that is really, how can you make a reasonable accommodation? You can go to askjan.org, which is tied into making reasonable accommodations for people to protect them at an even higher level. So one is asking, is there a person with higher risk or a person with a family member with a higher risk that I want to really protect? And also, does the employee have a work-related risk? And are you prepared now to make changes to the workplace in order to mitigate their risk? So if you are a business that has more than 10 employees, you need to follow OSHA's guidelines, which also includes the OSHA 300, writing down any kind of cases associated with your business, but also keeping track of what you've done for safety purposes. OSHA has a complete page dedicated to COVID-19. It is very easy to navigate. It's very easy to navigate. And part of that is determining what your workers' exposure risk is to COVID-19. OSHA also has a phone number where you can call and talk to somebody. And this is not part of their enforcement guide. It's not going to connect to any kind of penalty or any kind of citations. It's free, it's confidential. If you're saying, oh my goodness, this is going to bring in OSHA, what do I do? Call them. You're not alone. They're here for you. Your health department is also here for you. You are not alone in this situation. So OSHA has their occupational risk pyramid from very high, but if you are here today, you are probably in a medium or a low risk category. Typically the very high and high are anybody who are working with known COVID cases, which typically are going to be medical professionals. If you're in the lower risk, it doesn't require contact with people who are known to have COVID-19 or even suspected of having COVID-19. But because we are in a pandemic situation and because we have active community spread, anyone who's working with people have a risk, a potential risk of being exposed to COVID-19, even if we don't know that that person has it. So you can work through, OSHA has a lot more details about how to work through this. There's the link on how to connect and look at risk levels associated with your employees or with yourself as you work. Some of this also can give you a sense of peace of, oh, hey, it's not so bad, as you recognize that you might be in the low exposure category because of how you work and how you spend time. So I hope it's encouraging to you and not overwhelming to you as you work through this process. So if you can say yes to those first two questions, CDC gives you the go ahead and says, yes, let's move on. Do you have recommended health and safety actions in place? That sounds a little overwhelming. Really, it just means let's develop your business response plan to COVID-19. It's a process. Work through the process, mitigate risk, which we're about to do, and it's going to really help you as you move forward. You can do this. You can do this. As you think about anything you're doing, this is also some of the leadership piece is how are the things you're doing going to be received by your workforce and how are they going to be received by the public? Because it's what you do and it's also how you do it and how you communicate that out to other people. So keep those things in mind. You want to keep people safe, absolutely. But you really want to make sure too that people know that you're doing it because you care for them. So your business response plan answers that question. Are you doing the things to keep your people safe? You want to talk about communication, you want to figure out your policies, you want to talk about business continuity planning, healthy hygiene practices, think about your building and your space, social distancing, PPE, all of that's in there. Feels a little overwhelming, it's here. You can go through the process. Communication. Figure out who is going to be the one who talks about COVID-19. Include your OSHA 300 log if that's necessary to report any kind of cases. How are you going to communicate this out? Who is the voice box? I know most of you are in businesses with less than 5 employees, so this is probably going to be you. Just knowing that this is going to be one of your responsibilities and clarifying how you're going to work through this process is going to be really, really helpful for you. So if there's more people than just you in your business, start thinking about who your workplace coordinator is going to be for COVID-19 information. This is the official spokesbox. When something comes from this person, it represents your business to all of your clients, to all of your employees. And this person has a really important job of keeping other people calm and informed. And when people are informed, they do a whole lot better. So it's a key role for you. If it's you, tell people, tell your staff, tell your clients, hey, I'm informed, I know what I'm doing, and I'm confident that we are taking care of people. Figure out who all you need to talk about when and what and how, and who's going to talk to the health department if that becomes necessary. Very good chance that it would. And then tell your employees what you're going to do. Don't just keep it hidden. I'm unsure about it. It might change. Yes, you are unsure. And yes, it probably will change. And that's okay. But communicate to people in this situation. People need to know that you are taking care of them. Clearly communicate. You want to inform your workers because your informed workers are going to feel safe. And people who safe are going to do better. And they're going to be happier and they're going to work better and you're not going to get complaints and life will just be better. So communicate with people, and because they matter to you, communicate with the people who are around you. So there's a whole lot of policy that you're going to need to consider. And if you're, again, a smaller business, which many of you are, just think about more of procedures, like what's the structure of how you're going to do this. You need to be flexible. You need to allow different ways of working besides just a building or just in person. Be really flexible. Be flexible and creative about hours. Now, when people are sick or possibly sick, you need to also be non-punitive. Like someone can't come in because they're sick. Oh no, you can't get any more shifts. Not the time for that. If people are sick, they need to stay out of your workplace because of the danger and the risk for you and for your clients and for anyone else. As you think about your travel policies, think about international travel. If you are traveling internationally, or if anyone on your team is traveling internationally, consider that they might have a quarantine time going into a new country, or they may have a quarantine time returning from a country. Figure out what's non-essential travel. What can you do via Zoom? There's lots and lots you can do in this format. If you've typically had employees sharing vehicles, how are you going to reduce that risk? There are ways to do it. There are ways to do it, but how are you specifically going to do it? If you're going to put in some sort of health checks, which it is recommended that you have some sort of screening process, how are you going to do it? Just making sure you have a structure for how you are going to keep people safe. Those are your policies and your procedures, and do those. And then once you set them, make sure you communicate that out to all your employees. Also, if you're a business that provides insurance services, if there's any kind of employee assistance services, especially for mental health, make sure your people know about them. Take care of your clients, your employees, and their families. As you think about continuing your business during this time, figure out what is essential, what is absolutely essential, both in employees and in their functions. Figure out what can be reduced as far as risk goes, both in function and in your employees. how can you make these essential functions safer? And you're protecting your business, and you're protecting your employees, and you're protecting your clients. And the world needs what you have. So how are you going to protect what you deliver? Think about all your supply lines, depending on your business. Think about your supply lines, because those businesses are likely going to be impacted as well. Prepare for absenteeism. Prepare for significant absenteeism. When people are exposed, they go into isolation for 14 days. Same thing happens with your distributors. Those supply chains can go into isolation unless they're a critical service for up to 14 days. Change the way you need to do business. Lots of thinking and creativity. Now, you've probably done a lot of this. Expect it to continue. Also, it's not all gloom. Look for opportunities, because there are opportunities in this situation. How might your business pivot? How might you find a way to serve in this time of complete confusion? Yeah, there are opportunities. Think about how you can meet people's needs very uniquely in this time, because it is possible. And I believe that there's ways you can do it. Okay, healthy hygiene. Going back to kindergarten. Let's all wash our hands. Lots and lots and lots of hand washing. Again, we wash our hands. We have this epic Star Wars battle of coronavirus being torn to pieces. It's just hand washing. It's very simple. And because it's so simple, people tend to think, oh no, it's not enough. It is tremendous, tremendous. Make sure everybody washes their hands. You can even train them how to wash their hands and have them watch a video. You can train them how to walk out of the bathroom without touching everything and reinfecting their hands. Have people wash their hands. And if they can't wash their hands, have them use hand sanitizer. That's effective, but not nearly as effective as washing their hands. You don't get the Star Wars battle if you're just using hand sanitizer. Our cloth face coverings are also a way of keeping the virus out of the environment. What you're doing is blocking that virus from being transferred out. Because remember, people tend to be infectious before they're showing any kind of symptoms. So covering is one way of reducing that. Stay home when sick, even just a little bit. Man, I know that's a hard one. And especially, you are your own business owner. I know you work through the hard things. Now's not the time. Stay home when you're sick, even just a little. Make sure your employees are staying home when sick. It's a hard thing too. If you have a client who comes in and say, hey, you matter to me, but my business matters, my people matter. Now's not the time for us to have this face-to-face interaction. Go on Zoom, go on any other platform, give them a call, maintain space. You don't want that face-to-face interaction. Training, tell your people what you're doing to keep them safe. Train them, say, hey, these are the things we're all doing. You are creating this new organizational culture of health and wellness and saying, hey, this matters. You matter, so we are all staying healthy together. You can probably add cues to action. You've seen them already. They're going to be signs all over. Put signs up, put signs in the bathroom, wash your hands, or auditory. You hear these a lot. One note on these, the longer that they're there, the more people tend to just tune them out. So if you're going to use cues to action, change them occasionally, because then there'll be a new thing that people go, oh yeah, wash my hands, good thing. When you think about going back into your building or going into, this is your building, because this is the space that you occupy. You're going to enhance your cleaning and sanitation processes. And really, that goes to frequency. You're going to do it much more often than what you've been doing it. Now, it doesn't have to be after every single person. CDC has guidelines on how to clean, and most of it is what you're doing already, but especially during this time of community spread, you're going to want to increase that and figure out what that's going to look like for your business. Figure out who's going to be cleaning, and is that going to impact OSHA? So list N is going to tell you what you can use to completely disinfect. Train your staff, and if you're having your staff clean with OSHA, you also have to tell them about what they're cleaning with, and you need to provide them with PPE, which is usually gloves, when they're using different kind of cleaning materials. If you have the ability to put in touchless systems like touchless trash cans or touchless doors, you can also have doors that have a foot opening piece at the bottom or touchless sinks. Those are helpful. They're not necessary. Again, this is you mitigating risk in your situations. There are so many things you can do. You can be overwhelmed. Make your choices, and it's enough. You've done your best. Do something, but make your choices and let it be. You also need to look at your building ventilation system. You want to make sure that has some new air that comes in, and you're not just recycling the same air in your building. You're probably going to be adding a HEPA filter. ASHRAE has a fantastic article about what you need to do with your building ventilation. Again, that's a secondary piece. Person to person is primary. Person to person transmission is primary. Person to person transmission is primary. Most often people are going to get COVID-19 by inhaling respiratory droplets from other people. That leads to, how are you doing social distancing in your work setting, both for you and for anyone who's your employee or a client or anyone else? And simply, you are enhancing the space between people, because we know those respiratory droplets come out and they fall down. They come out and they fall down. So if you are separate from people, you are separate from those respiratory droplets. If you can't be separate, a physical barrier, phenomenal. Something like those clear plastic sneeze guards that you're seeing, yep, that stops it. If you're in different rooms, that stops it. Or just increase distance. So limit the number of people who can come into your work site. If people aren't there, they're not there. Encourage telework as much as possible. Just keep people apart. You can have drive-through windows, you can have pickup options, change the layout so people are further apart. Have people face away from each other, because again, it's the mouth. So if one person is facing this way, have someone else face this way. There are ways to keep people apart. However, there may be times when you want to have people come a little bit closer together. Be thoughtful. Again, you're talking about how much time people interact, how they're interacting. Just think about it. This is all how you are going to be mitigating the risk using social distancing. So the one piece with social distancing, the different government regulations are, depending on which phase you're in, some of them mandate social distancing. And then as you move into larger groups, that social distancing is also they still encourage social distancing, but you can have a group together that doesn't have to maintain that. But what you see with that is a contained group that can cluster together if there's an outbreak, but they want to keep it contained to a smaller group. So that's one of the pieces with the gating changes and moving through phases. They increase the sizes of those groups in case one person is infected, like it's a smaller group that gets infected. But you can think about that for your business as well. Reduce the number of contacts per person. Create small contained groups of contained people. If you're going to have people together, keep the same people together. Don't have people change. So if you're a business that delivers event supplies and you have everybody travel in vehicles and you have 4 teams in 4 vehicles, keep those people together. Don't let them intermingle. Make sure they work together, keep them separate, and then your teams will be safe. Encourage telework as much as possible. If you are a consultant or a counselor, use digital platforms, especially if you're in person and you're using a mask and you can't see facial expressions. That makes it really, really difficult. So encourage telework as much as possible. Doesn't work in some of your businesses. Stagger work days, stagger shifts, stagger breaks. Just keep people apart. Close or limit access to communal spaces. Now that's hard because we are relational people. We are meant to be together. Oh, it's hard. I'm an extrovert. I love people. So it's really difficult to have that separation. This will end. This will not go on forever. And it's only during this time that we're trying to protect people. We're doing it for a short time. And then limit your large events, limit your large gatherings. If you typically have a large staff meeting or a large time where you bring lots and lots of people into close proximity for a long time, oh, that can be hard. Okay, so add your signage, add any kind of cues to action, auditory or signage, but make sure you change them out so people still continue to pay attention to them. Again, that rule of thumb, the more time that people spend together in a contained space with infected people, the higher their risk is of getting COVID-19. The more people you interact with is going to raise your risk, and inside is riskier than outside. So go outside, get space between people, limit the time, limit the number of contacts, the new contacts that you have with people. These are all ways to help mitigate risk for you and your business. PPE. Okay. Ensure that what people are using is actually fitting the need. As the employer, you're going to be paying for PPE. PPE is personal protective equipment. It's meant to protect the wearer. Ensure if you're going to be using PPE that you have a source for PPE. Depending on what people use, and again, this is higher risk levels typically, or in your medium risk, but you're working with someone who you think might have it, providing gloves, gown, face mask, or a face shield and goggles, because when you're working with someone who you know or are suspected of having COVID-19, there needs to be a lot more protection in place. If you suspect someone of having COVID-19, respiratory droplets are considered a bodily fluid, and there's some OSHA training that's required as well. OSHA has that information on their website. It's going to be also under their bloodborne chances of working with blood, but the respiratory droplets fit under that as well. Cloth face coverings are not PPE. Cloth face coverings are meant to protect other people. But if you as an employer are requiring them, consider providing them. So they may use them, they may not. Current recommendation is if you are not able to maintain physical distancing, it's encouraged that you wear a face cover. Yeah, it's about protecting other people with the face cover and keeping possible things from becoming fomites. Personal protective equipment paid for by the employer. So if you can say yes to all of that, let's move forward in reopening safely. Is there ongoing monitoring in place for your business? Checking for signs and symptoms of COVID-19 is something that you're going to need to do. So some sort of health screening of your employees and even of yourself. This needs to probably happen daily. Some businesses, you are allowed by EEOC to do temperature taking, but there's a whole lot that goes along with that. You're going to need to look at practicalities, like, are you going to pay people while they wait to get their temperature taken? Who is taking the temperature? What kind of training does that person have? What kind of PPE does that person have? How are you caring for data? Whew. And you need to do the same exact process for all staff if you're taking temperatures. You can also just ask people, hey, have you experienced any of these symptoms in the last day? It's a whole lot easier if you're a small organization. That's probably going to be a much easier route for you. CDC has some questionnaires you can use. Basically, the question is, have you experienced any of these list of short symptoms in the last 24 hours? And asking that question every day before people come in. If they say yes to any of them, you ask people to stay home for that day. So if staff call in sick, because we are in a pandemic, you do have permission to ask about what symptoms they have, and that'll help you determine if you're going to be telling any other staff. You always protect the privacy of the person who is sick, so you don't say, hey, Mary is sick, and now everybody else knows that Mary is sick. Can't do that, but you can ask about symptoms. We'll talk more about health department and contact tracing coming up soon, but you might have to have that piece in as well. returning to work is something that the CDC has guidelines on. Depending on when you encounter this, check the current CDC guidelines to see when people can come back to work. It'll be at least 14 days. And sometimes people will, you can require a medical note, but that's not always feasible with people getting in to see their primary care physician. So sometimes you're just going to be going with time. Again, you'll need to check the current CDC guidelines on that. So 5 steps when you get a confirmed case of COVID-19. This is a when, this isn't an if. This is going to impact you. This is going to impact your business. This is going to impact a client. This is going to impact employees. COVID-19 will impact you. And at some point, you're going to put this into place. So first thing, you're going to take care of your employee. You're going to take care of them by sending them home and making sure that they contact their doctor, probably by phone, to talk about what symptoms they have. If they get a positive test back, or if they are presumed positive, this is where you're going to go into the next part. You're going to need to call your employee and ask about who they've been with. And I'm giving you the 6-15-48 rule. And that is, who have you been within 6 feet of for at least 15 minutes in the 48 hours before you started to exhibit symptoms? So let's say you came in one day, kind of had a sore throat, but it wasn't so bad. So you came in, and the next day you kind of had a cough, but it wasn't so bad. And the next day, I don't feel very good. And you go home and you decide to run through the list and you recognize, wow, I think I have these. You go to your doctor, you get your test, 45 minutes, come back, you find out you're positive for COVID-19. You need to go back and think about the last 48 hours before you had symptoms. Anyone you've been in 6 feet contact with for at least 15 minutes are going to be the people that you're going to communicate with. So then you're going to contact people who were exposed. You can do this with your own business. You can also contact the health department, and the health department can work with you. If you have a very large case, you are going to be wanting to talk to the health department to help you work through this process. The health department is for you. The health department wants to work with you. They are supporting you in this. So once you figure out who needs to be contacted, letting them know, we have a reason to believe you've been in close contact with someone who's tested positive for COVID-19. You do not disclose the person's name, that's private, and you can send that group of people home for 14 days where they are going to self-monitor. That's different for essential employees. Doctors and nurses can still work. That's a whole different category. But for your situations, probably you're going to send people home for a 14-day quarantine, and they can self-monitor to see if they develop any symptoms. If they don't develop any symptoms in 14 days, they can come back. CDC has lots of information on that as well. So if you have a confirmed positive case of COVID-19 that has entered your workspace and you have a building that you work in, you're going to need to clean your building based on CDC guidelines. You're going to air it out, you're going to clean it, you're going to disinfect it. CDC has a whole setup of how you do it. Ideally, when you air it out first, you're going to just let the building sit for 24 hours. So know that there is an enhanced cleaning procedure that you're going to go through when you have a confirmed case of COVID-19. So after you've sent the employee home, contacted the people close to them, and cleaned your building, you're also going to contact any other employees or clients that might have been there, and you just want to let them know, hey, we had a positive case. Don't disclose their name. We've contacted everybody who's been in close proximity. You've notified everyone in that area. There's a potential that you were exposed, but we've already contacted everyone we do know. These are the things we've done to keep you safe. You want your employees, you want your clients, you want everyone associated with you to know that you are working hard to keep them safe and you have their best interests in mind. This is what we did to clean. We followed CDC guidelines. This place is ready for you to come back. If you have any questions, contact and give them a name, whether it's someone in HR, if you're the business owner, if you have any questions, contact me and I can help you. Ideally, you do this in person, but again, keep your social distance in this as well. CDC has some really good information in their general business facts on going through that process. This is a when. This is when this happens, not an if. So be prepared. Again, be prepared for working from home. Be prepared for isolation. Be prepared for communicating with everyone you are associated with. Hooray! You can open and monitor the situation. You want to have a safe workplace and your employees want to know how hard you're working. Tell them what you're doing. Tell them what's in place to keep them safe, that you have mitigated their risk, that you have their concern in mind, and they're going to be able to support your really important business that is needed. You can do this. Like, you can do this. Deep breath. This is a hard situation. You are in a pandemic. This is absolutely hard, and you can do it. You can follow the process. You can make good decisions for your business and for everyone associated with your business. So, what questions do you have? How can I support you? What questions do you have? Laura says, I want to develop a survey to send to employees to get feedback on how they've dealt with this and what they need going forward. Laura, I'm going to unmute you. Laura, I've unmuted you. Could you share a little bit about your question? Are you looking for specifics about using something like SurveyMonkey or Google? Are you looking for questions? Tell me a little bit about your question.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, sorry. So we create surveys for businesses. And so one of the things that I thought would be beneficial for them is to reach out to their employees as a communication tool to get information from them as to how they've handled remote work, how they've handled being furloughed, how they might be handling coming back, and what they've been experiencing during this whole time, so that not only they can make sure that they were able to provide them with the tools and things that they've needed, but also when they look forward, if this happens again, what they need to put into place to make it easier for the employees to handle the situation and then to come back more mentally ready as well.
Okay, so I'm hearing you're seeing a business opportunity in this that you can provide for businesses to help get feedback. Are you looking at taking this at a much higher level, or are you looking at using this very specific for a very specific business?
Just for their own personal use, not necessarily giving it up to the country, so to speak, as far as data. It's just more internal use to show that they really care, because a lot of my clients that I've been talking to, they say that the lack of communication has really created a sense of lack of trust. Mm-hmm. And they want to be able to kind of wheel that back in and really get people involved.
Yes, Laura, you're absolutely correct. Lack of communication, especially in a crisis, really impacts trust, because people think information is being withheld from them instead of people don't know what to say. So it's critical for leaders to communicate. I commend you for considering this and figuring out ways to help them communicate. What you just said with the leaders want to rebuild trust is also a conversation you can encourage them to have with their businesses, to say with their clients. And you can say, hey, what was helpful, what was not helpful? It can be an open-ended survey, or it can be something more with a Likert scale where you say how strong was communication, were these things lacking? There's probably some behavioral health research that's been done, both in resilience and also in crisis, that you can pull from for your survey.
That sounds really good. I think I've been brainstorming with several of my clients about it and the challenges that they've had, and just trying to see if it would be helpful for them so that I can help design that for them. So I appreciate your input, and this information has been really great today. So thank you for all your time and putting it together. It's been very helpful.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for your questions, and thank you for supporting other businesses too as they work on reopening and developing trust. Those are really great things. Thanks. What other questions do people have? Did anything surprise anybody? Was anything confusing that you would like clarified? Shelley Turner, I'm going to allow you to talk and ask your question on insights of number of people that could or should congregate 30 days from now, 60 days from now.
Yeah, so this is Sherry, and you know, we do an awful lot of events, and it's not that we're planning any, but a lot of the fundraising that we do is attached to events. And so, you know, we're looking at doing fall events, and I just wondered, because you're a little bit more in the know of how things can escalate when we get past the summer months. Do you have any crystal ball on that?
It would be great if I had a crystal ball. Yeah, I wish I had a crystal ball. I would say, Sherry, this is a situation that is going to be ongoing. It is not going away. The question about opening, reopening, number of people to be allowed to congregate is a political question. It's not so much a public health question. We know that more people gathered together in enclosed spaces increase their risk. We know that COVID-19 is a real risk, and it's out there, and it's going to continue to be out there. Whether people are allowed to gather or not gather is informed from the health department, but the health department doesn't make those choices. That's going to come down from the governor or from the county. You're going to be able to track on the dashboard what's happening within Kansas or Missouri to know what's happening. That information, though, is going to come about 14 days out from the event, which is really hard because I know people are planning further out. Sherry, you mentioned that you rent equipment for people to have large gatherings. Outside is definitely safer than inside. So that's an opportunity for you in that. The gathering guidelines say that you can have, the same way with a restaurant. Right now, you can have up to 10 people together before you socially distance them from somebody else. So when you think about, say, tent capacity, you're probably going to be reducing the number of people who can be there. But if you leave the sides off of your tent, you actually allow that outside air, and you're a safer situation for people than being inside a building. So there's an opportunity for you in that. By providing that overhead covering, you do provide a safer space for people to gather in. Again, it's mitigating risk, but the risk is still very real, and the risk is still there.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome, Sherry. Good luck with your business. Anything that would be helpful to be clarified, or anything that was really overwhelming and seemed like too much? Any questions very specific to your own organization or business? Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again and wrap up. So you can contact me at rebecca@greenboatcoaching.com. I'm available for coaching and for consulting. If you participated today and you want to have a 15-minute conversation with me, go ahead and contact me and we can set up that time and I can talk to you very specific about your business and your business needs. That'll be a free conversation for those who participated live today. Thank you to the Women's Business Center for hosting me and the Wednesday Women's Entrepreneur Series. Thank you for Dr. Brent and Brandy on the chat board as well. Thanks for coming. I appreciate you being here. Take care.